Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. I never imagined I'd wake up one morning to the roar of bulldozers and excavators tearing up my backyard. The shrill beeps and rumble of heavy machinery jolted me out of bed. I rushed to the window, heart pounding. That's when I saw it. A huge construction crew swarming over the back half of my property, ripping down the fence and uprooting my trees. What in the world? I threw on some clothes and sprinted outside, waving my arms. Hey, what's going on here? You can't do this. The construction workers glanced my way but continued their work. I hurried over to the man operating the bulldozer. Stop this right now, this is my property. The man just shrugged and said, Talk to the lady in charge, I'm just doing my job. I scanned the scene until I spotted a prim woman in a pantsuit scrutinizing a clipboard. I stormed up to her. Excuse me, who are you? And what gives you the right to destroy my land? She gave me an icy stare. I'm Susan Worthington, president of the Homeowners Association's board. The board approved plans for a new commercial parking lot here months ago. This portion of the land belongs to the Homeowners Associations per our records. I stood there, mouth agape in shock. A parking lot? On my property? Without my permission? I'm sorry, I said, trying to stay calm. But this is my private property as deeded to me 5 years ago when I bought this place. There must be some mistake. Susan's lips pressed into a thin line as she shook her head. No, according to Homeowners Association's documents from the 80s, we own rights to this section for development. It's out of your hands. She dismissed me with a wave and headed off, yelling instructions to the demolition crew. I hurried back inside and rifled through my office drawer until I found it, my deed and title. As I suspected, it clearly showed my ownership of the entire 2-acre parcel, including the back area Susan had referenced. How could the homeowners associations claim rights to my land? I had to get to the bottom of this. I called the homeowners association's board office on my way to work and left an urgent message demanding to see proof of their supposed land rights. Days passed, but I heard nothing back. All the while, the parking lot construction progressed full steam ahead. My once beautiful property now resembled a dirt pit filled with gravel and cement foundations. My frustration boiled over. I finally marched down to the Homeowners Association's office and wouldn't leave until Susan produced documentation. After making me wait for over an hour, she emerged from the back room holding a few papers. Here is your proof, she said curtly, thrusting the documents at me. I pored over them and saw they were covenants dated decades ago that purported to grant the Homeowners Association's access to a portion of my property for development purposes. But something seemed off about the typesetting, language, and signatures. I knew I needed professional help. I met with a real estate lawyer, Amanda, who examined the Homeowners Association's documents. Her face turned grim. Unfortunately, these covenants appear forged. I've seen similar situations where homeowners associations try illegal maneuvers to seize land. We need to act quickly. Together, Amanda and I filed an emergency injunction to halt construction. We had a tense court hearing where Susan and the Homeowners Association's lawyer continued to insist the covenants were legitimate. But Amanda expertly highlighted the multiple discrepancies that indicated forgery. When she presented my proper deed, the judge agreed the Homeowners Associations had clearly overstepped. He ordered an immediate stop to all parking lot work while things got sorted out. I wish I could say the Homeowners Associations backed down gracefully at that point, but instead, they countersued me for construction delays and damages. I guess they didn't expect me to fight back. Amanda hired a private investigator who gathered statements from ex-Homeowners Associations members alleging unethical business practices. Armed with this mounting evidence, Amanda convinced the Homeowners Associations to drop their suit and settle out of court. Their lawyer knew we had an airtight forgery case. The judge slapped them with massive trespassing penalties, awarded me ownership rights to the disputed land, and even made their president, Susan, resign. In the end, I chose not to sue for damages, wanting to put the whole ordeal behind me. The homeowners associations did pay for removal of the partially built parking lot materials so I could restore my backyard. This experience taught me homeowners need to vigilantly guard their property rights against even seemingly respectable associations. I'm just relieved I caught their fraudulent land grab in time. My advice, always insist on transparency and accountability from homeowners associations. They are not above the law no matter how much they try to bend the rules. I fought for what was rightfully mine and emerged the victor against all odds. The next one is a pro-revenge story. This tale of nuclear revenge happened a while back and is a work in progress. It is too good not to tell, and I will try to keep you updated down the track. Brian's neighbor is a typical greedy career landlord who left their rental house in disrepair. The poor tenant was living in the cold house, with raw sewage leaking onto the lawn, and holes in the house where you could see light coming out. After multiple requests from Brian, Karen refused to get any repairs done. When the state government introduced new laws about ensuring landlords are insulating their rental properties instead of doing this to the house, Karen kicked out her tenant and left the house vacant for 5 years. The old house deteriorated even more during this time, with rats infesting the house and invading other houses nearby. Brian and his wife, with their limited funds, were able to get sufficient lending from the bank and offered to buy the house and fix it up themselves to improve the neighborhood or rent it out, as there is a massive shortage of rental properties in our local county. Greedy Karen did not want to sell, nor did she want to spend a cent on the house to remedy the rodent problem. She also did not care about the effect the house was having on the aesthetics of the street. It is important to know that Karen and her wealthy family have over 100 rental properties, and due to lax tax laws in this region, they do not pay a cent and can get tax write-offs when their properties deteriorate. They can claim this as a loss. Long story short, some of them appear to be leeches on our society and are one of the reasons property prices are so high and rent prices are skyrocketing in our area. Her husband is also the chairman of the state's Landlords Association, an association that he often fronts the media for, defending landlords and putting a good media spin on them when there is negative press. Fast forward 5 years and Brian finds out the house is going to be demolished to make way for some new houses on the small section. That's good news at least, though Brian and his wife were anxious about how smoothly the demolition would go due to the fact that the houses are quite close to each other. This is important for later. Prior to demolition, the company doing it had to get samples from all sides of the house to check for asbestos. Either Karen made it difficult for the company to get down the side bordering Brian's house, or they simply were too lazy, but only samples from 3 sides, not 4, were taken. Demolition day came around, and Brian was concerned that no safety barriers had been put up to protect his house from falling bricks from the chimney, nor was there anything to stop dust and debris from going all over his new deck and porch area. Later that day, Brian had the pleasure of meeting Keith. Keith is the demolition company manager who is well known around the district for only caring about money and having little regard for people or property. Keith was doing the demolition himself that day simply with a digger. Brian returned home during his break at work to check the progress of the demolition, and found that the demolition was already complete after only an hour or so. The demolished house was in a pile. He climbed up on his roof and, to his disbelief, found hundreds of bricks had fallen onto his roof, causing damage, though he was lucky that none had fallen through into the house. Brian phoned up demolition man Keith to ask about what went wrong. Keith initially played down the damage despite there being 200 bricks laying on Brian's roof. Even with the damage done, no apology, and the rude attitude of Keith, Brian kept his cool. "Since I did a little bit of roofing when I was younger, I can fix up the roof if you just get me 4 new sheets of roofing iron, and we will call it even. Don't worry about paying for paint, I can sort that out when I paint the whole roof after the fall." Brian's roof was not in the best of shape, but it was in much worse shape after having bricks dumped on it, leaving massive dents and chipping the paint. This is the moment that a simple decision on Keith's part would screw him and the landlord big time. "Not happening, pal. Your roof is messed up anyway. I'll get you a sheet of second-hand roofing iron from my yard to repair the damage on the roof, and I can come and hose off the dust off your deck and dog kennel." Cue the nuclear revenge. The revenge was not intentionally nuclear, but Brian had a dilemma. His roof was damaged and he needed it repaired. There was rain and snow forecast later in the week, and he shouldn't be out of pocket having to buy new materials to fix his own roof up to a good standard. Brian is normally a calm and relaxed man, but this situation and the way he and his property were treated sparked an anger that I have never seen before. Brian got in contact with his insurance company, and due to the issue involving a roof, a building assessor arrived that day to assess the claim. The assessor would then be able to seek damages from the landlord or demolition company if he found them to be at fault. Brian also reported the demolition company to the local health and safety authorities due to their lack of safety precautions used during the demolition. The assessor got onto the roof with Brian and was mortified to hear how Keith had acted with such disregard for the damage done to the roof and his lack of an apology for any wrongdoing. It got the assessor mad. He then looked more concerned, bent down, and picked up some gray fibrous material. Luckily, thanks to COVID, we already have masks on, Brian. This here looks like it is asbestos. I don't know how they got the sign off to get this house knocked down in this manner. You don't know at the time of being exposed to this stuff, but if you breathe in these fibers, it can cause serious diseases later on in life, including lung cancer. I'll get this sent off to the lab for testing and we'll be in touch. Fast forward another day, and Brian was contacted by his insurance company. It turns out the side of the house that wasn't tested was clad in asbestos. Not just any bad asbestos, but the worst possible type you can get. Insurance will be seeking damages to replace Brian's whole roof, not just the damaged part. The cost of replacement is likely to be around $20,000. This is the cheap part. The demolition site has been shut down by local authorities, and there needs to be a massive decontamination of the area. This involves removing at least half a meter of topsoil on surrounding properties, testing the soil, and removing more if asbestos is still found. Areas with decks may need to have them removed so the soil can be evacuated from underneath. The cost for this cleanup will likely be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but who will pay for this is unknown at this stage. Whether it is Keith or Karen's insurance or them personally, time will tell. Regarding Brian, his family, and their dog potentially being exposed to the asbestos, that is another battle for them to fight, and I will keep you updated. Update 1. I've just been on the phone with Brian for half an hour. His workplace was very sympathetic and paid for him to have 2 days off to try to sort things out. This is in complete contrast to Karen and Keith, who are yet to apologize and have made life difficult for Brian and his family. Due to the neighboring property being closed off for entry due to the health and safety investigation, Brian cannot even get scaffolding on his roof yet to fix it. Brian is worried now that the landlord is going to try to make his life hell. She is also a lawyer, apparently. Karen was the person who offered the old roofing iron, apparently, not Keith. She spoke to her husband, who said that because the bricks dented the roof, it must have been rusty and old, so it doesn't need new iron put on. Keith, however, went nuts at Brian for getting insurance involved, and also the Health and Safety Investigation Unit, who are currently conducting the investigation. Regarding Brian and his family still living in the house, according to the investigator, the risk is negligible, and the problems will arise when the debris is removed from the section. This will require a large tent, etc. However, the wind has been strong in the last few days, and I feel the risk is still high living next door to uncovered broken asbestos cladding that is not being kept damp. Brian asked the investigation office person by phone about what to do about his dog and if they needed a vet checkup, etc. They were 1 meter away from the fence, which is about a foot from the asbestos when it was broken up. They responded saying, "Do you think your dog will live more than 20 years? If not, I probably wouldn't worry." Brian also thinks the landlord is probably scheming revenge of her own. Brian paid for a new fence himself a few years back to border Karen's rental. When he moved in, the old fence was half falling down, and she refused to pay half, despite this being the law. He reckons that because the fence is approximately 10 centimeters too high, she will ask him to cut the height down at his own cost, so it is in the perfect position for her new houses that are to be built. Brian's plan is that he will pull the nice expensive fence down entirely and put up 600 high chicken wire mesh, as this is all that is required by law. And there is nothing she can do about it legally since he paid for and built the fence. I will continue to keep you all updated. Also, as I know the local newspaper editor, I have offered to go with Brian to discuss this story with them once the investigation is completed, if Karen tries to make life difficult, and also expose Keith for his dirty practices. Keith's company has just been awarded a multi-million-dollar contract for the demolition of an old car factory, and this would raise some eyebrows. Update 2, a very small update but not great news. I feel this story, as many have suggested, will not conclude with a warm, fuzzy feeling of ultimate revenge as things progress. Firstly, Brian informed me that a fence has gone up around the exposed parts of the neighboring property. This is only to stop people from the public going over to the debris pile and scavenging, etc., and then exposing themselves to the broken asbestos cladding. Brian also needed to take 2 full days off work when this happened to try to sort out the situation and reduce stress on his wife, talking with all parties involved. So he was down 2 days' wages coming up to Christmas, but his kind boss has paid him special leave for taking them off. The insurance company, after further clarification, will only be paying out for 1/4 of the roof and flashings. Brian will have to find funds to pay for the rest. This section of the roof is, however, the most expensive, as it encompasses a large complex parapet gutter, roofing iron, and flashings. Cost? $8,000. I hope I can provide something more substantial in a later update when there has been more action. Update 3. Wish this update was actually something to update you on, but alas, it is merely to say that due to the Christmas break, etc., nothing has progressed. Brian cannot get his roof fixed until the area beside his house is decontaminated so the scaffolding can then go up. Update 4. Another downer of an update. Brian is being paid $8K towards his roof. The landlord contractor got away with not needing a huge area cleanup and convinced local authorities that the building site would be sufficient for decontamination, as the testers could not find samples over the fences of surrounding houses. All topsoil on the old section was removed and replaced. A new house has been quickly built by the landlord's builder. The house looks as cheap as they come, a kitset house, and looks out of place. Sort of like a house you could load onto a truck and move if needed in the future. Brian still hasn't had his roof fixed yet, as he needs to save money to afford to pay for the whole roof. Update 5. Brian tells me the demolition company is taking his insurance company to court over the amount they have to pay for the roof. The next one is a petty revenge story. We recently bought a new cat tower. We have 5 cats who play hard, and the old tower was definitely showing signs of use. The cats had torn up the carpet and sisal, vomited in one of the cubes, and decapitated the hanging mouse whose name is Earl because why not? We set up the new tower, and after asking around to our friends, we couldn't find anyone who wanted it, so we took it out to the curb to get rid of it. Large trash pickup was coming up, so we figured if anyone wanted it, they would have plenty of time to grab it before trash pickup. In our neighborhood, as long as the item is not on the curb for more than a week, you won't get cited for having trash in your yard. No big deal, right? Oh no, it's a big deal because Karen and Kevin have decided they want the tower. I work from home, but my office is in the back of my house. We have a Ring camera, and around 10 a.m. one morning, the doorbell rings. I am in a meeting with my boss, so I check the app, see that I don't know who these people, Kevin and Karen, are, and go back to my meeting. About 45 minutes later, the doorbell rings again. Now I'm out of my meeting, and since I'm expecting packages, I check the app, see that it's the delivery guy, and then head out front to grab my packages off the porch. I hear the notification going off on my phone as I'm opening the door, and there stand Kevin and Karen with my packages and the cat tower. Kevin is holding my packages. Me. Can I help you? Kevin. We are interested in the cat tower. Me. Go for it. It's been left out for large trash. You can have it. May I have my packages, please? Karen. The carpet and the sisal on the tower are torn. I'm going to need you to fix that before we take the tower. And there's vomit on it. That needs to be cleaned as well. Me. I'm not going to fix anything on the tower. We are throwing it away. If you want the tower, take the tower. If not, it will be picked up later this week with large trash. Now may I please have my packages? Kevin, obviously realizing I'm not concerned at all about the state of the cat tower. Well, we still want the cat tower. I'm just going to leave it on your porch, and we will come back with our truck this weekend and pick it up. He is still holding my damn packages. Me, that won't work for us. See, we are trying to get rid of the tower, and I don't want it on my porch, which is why it's on the curb. So if you want the tower and you aren't going to take it right now, I'm not going to hold it for you. Please give me my packages. About this time, my phone started ringing, and I needed to get back to work. But I wasn't going to leave without my packages. Just as I am about to get angry with these people, my retired military, grizzled biker-looking neighbor pulls up in his pickup truck. He is a big pussycat, but very protective of us, and especially our 2 daughters. My neighbor calls over to me and starts heading over to where we are standing on my porch. I guess Kevin got nervous, so at that point he shoved my packages at me and then said, "Well, just leave the tower on the porch, and we will pick it up when we can." Yeah, that's not going to work for me. And when Kevin and Karen walk off, I turned to my neighbor and asked him to help me carry the damn cat tower back down to the curb. A little while later, I had to run an errand, and when I got back, the stupid cat tower was back on my porch. Y'all with the absolute stupid hell. My kid, F19, got back from class a little while later and asked why the cat tower is back on the porch. I told her the story, she rolled her eyes and groaned, and I went back to work. About 30 minutes later, she came into my office laughing. Me, what did you do? MK, took the cat tower back down to the curb. Me, how? That thing is heavy as hell. MK, it was really easy once I took it apart and put all the hardware in this Ziploc bag that accidentally fell into the trash can with the used cat litter. So if Kevin and Karen want the cat tower, it's still available, but they will have to go dumpster diving for the hardware. The next one is a malicious compliance story. So I was at this hotel lobby, sitting there waiting to go to a restaurant. All of a sudden, two cops show up, ask me for ID, and then tell me I have to leave because a lady had complained that she didn't feel comfortable with me there. It was a total Karen call. One cop was kind of a jerk, too. He tells me I have to leave until they let me back. They stare at me as I walk to my car. I'm not sure what it was. I was wearing a political slogan shirt, but nothing vulgar. Later, I call the hotel and ask to speak with a manager who then explains that some guest had called and she was kind of a Karen, so they wanted to make her happy. The manager said I'm welcome to come back to the property. I was reluctant to give them business again, but I couldn't let the cops or the Karen win. I go back to the hotel and sit at the restaurant. I call the police department and inform them that I got permission to return. The dispatcher is aggravated and says he is required to send an officer to check. The same cop who was there earlier returns and gives me the evil look. He goes to the front desk, speaks to the manager who waves me to the front. The cop pulls out a form that he has to fill out and the manager reviews it and signs it. It was a trespass removal form. Both seemed very annoyed to have to go through the process, but it's the law. The cop storms out, aggravated, as I smile and say, "Enjoy the day." The manager of the restaurant gives me a sort of smile and says I didn't have to call the cops back as it was just extra paperwork. But I wanted to comply with the policies, haha. I think I may have seen the Karen walk out, giving me a mean look as I was in the restaurant. I enjoyed the rest of my meal. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.